thank you all so much for coming out tonight again. I know we got name tags. Lucas, thank you very much for that. We'll kind of quickly just run around, say our names, and I should note that this meeting is being recorded by Franklin TV. Little Rusty, thanks to you. Again, my name is Dave. I'm on the school committee. My name is Thomas Dave.
I am Jessel, mother of 2 kids on Washington Street.
Jim Francis, Historical Commission.
Alan Earls, Historical Commission.
Nancy Brown.
Ruthann O'Sullivan, school committee.
Steve Sherlock, Franklin Matters, Franklin Public Radio. Bill Gagne.
Kit Brady.
Siobhan Deb.
Marcia IV student.
Liv Cotty, student from the high.
Hi, Erin Gallagher.
Everyone, Lucas Giguere, superintendent.
Colin Boisvert, Director of Operations.
Online.
Hi, I'm Reis Hansen. I'm on the school committee.
Narrett Barnell.
Thank you guys all very much. And say if everybody wants more chocolate chip cookies, feel free. Again, the other compliments to my wife. She did say, so we got this little blurb here, the chocolate chip cookie invented in Whitman, Massachusetts, 1938. Ruth Graves Wakefield, the owner of Toll House Inn in Wakefield, created the cookie by chopping up Nestle semi-sweet bars of chocolate and adding it to her cookie dough. She served them to guests at the inn, calling them Toll House Chocolate Crunch Cookies. And in 1939, Nestle bought her recipe for $1, along with a lifetime supply of chocolate. Later that year, Nestle began to sell pre-chopped semi-sweet chocolate as morsels, specifically marketed for cookie making, hence the famous Nestle Toll House chocolate chip cookies. The popularity spread as soldiers from World War II shared these cookies in care packages from home, eventually making it America's favorite cookie. Again, please feel free to...
I'm going to pass them around.
Oh.
You know, it's a little
That way you get that.
but I can have another, but you can learn history better and you experience it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, cookie.
I already have one.
All right, I'm going to have another. It was an excuse to get up. Yes, an immersive experience. Anybody else? Okay, yeah. See?
Thank you.
I'm texting Jenny that this is the best chocolate chip cookie
Oh,
I've ever eaten. Yeah.
I twisted my arm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there you go, yeah.
No, okay. Reese,
Bragging rights.
any for you?
I would, I'm jealous.
I'll save you one, buddy.
Yeah, they're really good.
And so I just wanted to also then before we kind of jump into kind of some new stuff, I figured just kind of do a recap of where we left off from our last meeting. One of the items. Hey, Kathleen Darrow, come on. No, just missed cookie time. That was
Oh, please. That's a good thing.
So, let's see, Colin, would you be able to load up the Horace Mann Legacy resource, the one all the way on the left? So I know one of the items that we kind of talked about at our last meeting was before we kind of start educating the public about Horace Mann, we want to make sure that we can kind of educate ourselves and we're on a firm standing. So this was, everyone started kind of throwing out a whole bunch of different resources, which was fantastic. We have some documents, there's a podcast, there's a couple of it's like a 1940s black and white biography film that is like only like 18 minutes, but it runs the whole course of Horace Mann's life, which I found really fascinating. Along with this also, so Jason Joyce had reached out to a friend over at Brown University who works in the archival room, and they have all of the Horace Mann papers. They're not yet digitized, but we do kind of have access to them, and what we're able to do is if anybody kind of has something that they know, oh, there's at this time Horace was writing an important letter and we just don't have access to it, we can kind of reach out to the archivist over there. He just told me he got a brand new digital scanning machine that he'd be happy to kind of put to work. And so we can just kind of let him know and say, all right, we're kind of looking for these papers, and he'll be able to make digital scans of them for use. So what I kind of see with this document right now that should be shared out with everybody, really just like a living document for all of us here. So as folks have already kind of added to it, and so if you kind of find some other educational material that you would find helpful, feel free, you can add it here or shoot me the email and I'll be happy to kind of do that same thing as well. And again, just a lot of resources just to kind of help familiarize ourselves better and kind of get on that same page.
Yeah.
Right now, any kind of questions or comments about that? Awesome. And then something else too, another piece, there was a lot of discussion about the financial aspect, about how this would actually be funded, it's a 503C, or what exactly that mechanism would be. And Lucas, I could talk, do you want to talk about the revolving account?
So the schools, so we created, or we are creating, I think you guys are voting on it next meeting, or?
Yeah, should be on the 14th.
Yeah, to vote to have a revolving account dedicated to the Horace Mann subcommittee. We've done this in the past for different types of projects, but basically anything that's donated to this account would only be used for this strict purpose. So it can't be used for other things in the budget or whatnot, but anything donated will go to that, and it gets, you might notice at school committee meetings at the end, when I read off all the donations, this is a check from the printing company or whatever, Ohio Pile. We would do it then, and then we would be able to keep accounting and keep it pretty clear and transparent on what we're doing. So the mechanism will exist for this.
And yeah, so it should be at the school committee meeting on the 14th. So that way, as we kind of go on to like Horace Mann's birthday, theoretically, I think it should be up and running.
Yes.
In May. The funds going into it, school business administrator confirmed, will be tax deductible as well, which I think will be fantastic for a lot of folks as a good selling point. And the moment. Yeah, and so, and I think also, I know we did this with the revolving account. I know Ruthann, I think, had a concern about that separation between the operating budget and the revolving account. And so with this here too, also provides that clear distinction. So folks kind of know if we do have this extra money, it's not because it's coming out of line item 300, where like the school department rests with the overall budget. It's complete lockbox away from all that other kind of funding sources and tax revenue. So I think that's going to be fantastic. Oh, and with as we have with the Franklin Education Foundation revolving account, I think we'll be able to create a website, right, where it kind of points right back to like Unipay, so folks will be able to go and make those direct donations themselves. With that, any kind of questions, comments? Folks online or in-house?
I just have a quick question, just because I don't know. Do we have any restrictions on how we use that money? I kind of figured we did,
I don't need to answer, but
I kind of figured we did. I just didn't know what those parameters are.
If it's donated money for the Horace Mann, it's really what the school committee approves, but this group is supposed to make recommendations. So I think the recommendations that are put before the school committee, if they vote to say we want to do X and it costs this, then the funds would be utilized from that account. And then that would be publicly transacted. There's this much in it, this was approved, this much is going towards it, this is much is left in the balance kind of thing.
So it's the school committee. That's perfect.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of questions that come up with the town about, can we borrow from a revolving account to, keep this music teacher or something? And so that's why I was like, oh, no, we have to.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Anything else here or online? And then the other one was really just kind of talking about where do we go from here. I know, right now the end goal would be, May of 2027 to kind of have like that formal recommendation to the school committee to say, here's that campus design, and here's what this group is kind of like recommending. Here's how much of what it would look like, what it might cost, so that way they can kind of get that formal recommendation. But before that time, there was that expressed interest of, all right, what are we doing up until that point? We kind of had like that 15-month runway, and a lot of talk about like that drip campaign with a kickoff event possibly piggybacking on the Historical Museum's Horace Mann birthday party celebrations. So with that, Alan or Jan, kind of what do we have kind of going on that weekend?
So glad you asked. Not as much as we'd like. Saturday, May 2nd, we are probably going to show the film that Dave mentioned the 1940s film, and there were a bunch of others interesting ones that have been done. I think a former school committee member, someone in the teachers union, did a pretty lengthy online documentary about Horace Mann. So we'll show those things. And in addition, for kids, we're going to set out some big tables with some little tiny, 19th century early 19th century buildings and little figures. And I have an educator who's going to help us have kids act out, kind of play out what was Horace Mann's life like. How did you get to school? Well, you didn't get a bus ride. You walked a long way. And where did you get the books you wanted to read? We had to go way uptown to the minister's house and just, playing with that. I don't know how far I will get. It's a little undeveloped, but I hope it will give people a chance to just touch and feel that topic. And then on the Sunday, we have a local academic, I guess I can say. He's a history teacher in Walpole, lives just down the hill from the library. He's finishing a thesis, I'm not sure if it's master's or PhD, on Horace Mann's later life in Franklin. As an adult, he came back to sort of rescue his brother, who, for whatever reason, didn't seem to be able to manage the family's finances and ended up going off in Ohio and dying of alcoholism. But he put the family back on solid ground. He was also a co-investor in an early mill in the area. So that's a part of his story that doesn't get talked about so much. Just not the big public stuff, but it was what was happening here. So those are our two days of modest celebrations. And there should be cake somewhere in there too.
You said that's a Saturday, Sunday.
I heard the second. Did you say
The
definitely?
second and the third.
I'm sorry. May 2nd, Saturday, we'll be having the films and the kiddie stuff, and probably cake that day. And then May 3rd in the afternoon is the speaker about Horace Mann's later life in Franklin.
So, thank you, Alan, very much. And so, I think now, be interested to kind of hear, from everybody, what are some thoughts and ideas about how we can hopefully kind of represent this group right here, and help add to whatever if you guys are interested in us having. Open the floor. Anybody
I
kind of
talk
has
a little
thoughts?
bit about some things that I've been thinking about, because I called Alan just to kind of hear what we just heard, to figure out what was going on there. Because I think that as a goal of the committee to be something that actually becomes a legacy, that we want to get as much engagement as possible. I think that's ultimately the goal, is to get a lot of engagement and then come up with a nice sort of end product. So I really want to try to get the kickoff well attended and publicized. So I thought if we could do something where we continue it to a more, without sounding, just make it fun and engaging in a way that's not as
You're not saying museums aren't fun, right?
less formal, so I think the museums will deal with the history buffs, the history buffs, the academics, the parents that are really engaged already, maybe, and then of course children. I think children will be a big part of the museum experience too. So I was thinking if we could hit up Teddy Gallagher's or something, especially because it's in walking distance, and then say, can we make it kind of an old-fashioned tavern that night and have. So I reached out to, and I thought we'd have to have something exciting going on besides what I did was I talked to, Siobhan was at our town committee, our school committee meeting, and I sort of leaned over and was like, hey, we're doing this Horace Mann thing, and I know you're on the mock trial team, and they were about to go to the States, which they made it to States and came 8th, I think, in the entire state, so good job, congrats. And I was kind of if we could do a sort of a mock trial about Horace Mann, or in some sort of, you guys can have kind of creative control, but and then have ciders and have fiddles and things like that, and make it kind of, how Concord Lexington redoes the thing. If we could create something like that and piggyback on the, it's too late to do the Civics Day, Jason and Joyce had proposed that idea, but if we could sort of make it into something where people are expecting it on his birthday every year, then maybe it'll draw attention and people who like to do that kind of thing and dress up and get excited about things, and maybe we can just make it a little bit more of an impression and get more people engaged. So music and drinks are always a big draw So anyway, that's why our students came today, because they were like, yeah, this sounds cool. And I was like, well, we have a meeting tonight. Actually, they had just got back to me. So I invited them to come and kind of hear about what the concept was. And then ultimately, they looped in their advisor and were like, you know, we could come up with something, you know, we don't want to take over. And I was like, no, take over. If this is something that excites you, go for it. I just don't know what your goals are as a club, and I don't want to push you into this if you're not excited about it. But if you are, awesome, and that could be something that we promote. So I just want to create something that we can promote a little bit and get people excited about. And we also were playing with the idea of not just the kids, but like maybe the theater group doing some sort of script at the historical museum could be, so we could kind of be like 2 days of like activities ending with like a, you know, I already talked to Jeff Roy. I actually emailed Elizabeth Warren to be like, hey, this is kind of your thing, education, would you come on? And she's like, doesn't think she can get here that day, but I sort of took this and ran with it because of the timing of it all, so I could come here with some ideas and see what people thought, and we could kind of get a committee together kind of to work on that. And I haven't reached out to any of the restaurants or anything because I just wanted the buy-in of the committee, and I just heard back from these guys about being really kind of committed to it, so I thought that'd be like a highlight. Whenever the students are involved, it's a big highlight.
Could we do like a cider/beer garden, like in the parking lot of the historical society, to like have people there and then have like an open house?
They were a little cautious even about the cake, so I'm not sure.
The cake is good, but I've had my wrist slapped a couple times about any mention of alcohol anywhere near town property, so I haven't quite figured out how to navigate that one. We're still working on it. But maybe the Methodists, they're not total teetotalers.
That's true.
Right across the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get it closer, because some people are like, oh, La Cantina's got more of a space for that. And I go, yeah, but how are we going to get people over? It doesn't feel like it's like the whole area.
Just one of the, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I was just the other thing happening that morning, and the date was picked and scheduled a while ago, but the third annual Jane Jacobs Walk starts at 10 o'clock that morning. It'll be a mile and maybe a mile and a half through downtown talking about zoning, et cetera, but we're going to pass at least one of the statues, and we'll probably go by the museum so we can incorporate any Horace Mann item to, you know, tease people after they've done the walk.
And we could open up and have a movie showing or something if that would be helpful. It's quick.
Right.
Pass out water, rest your feet, rest your legs for 2 minutes.
Sure.
To piggyback on that, I was also thinking about just a few weeks after that, we have the Strawberry Festival in town, where there's a lot of booths set up, and I couldn't see why we couldn't get a free booth. And we can't get everything accomplished by May 4th or 3rd. We could tag it in to a booth, signage, what the heck we're doing, what our goal is, to really educate those several thousand people that walk the street, and then do it again in the fall. Just a thought.
And in between, picking up on the concept of kind of the dripping farmer's market on the Friday, we could get into one of those tables and continue to do something.
If we can point people to a website or a social media handle too, like if they go by here, they get something, maybe it's a sticker, I don't know what you would hand out, but something they can like automatically follow so that they're kind of roped in at the strawberry stroll, for example, and then they're following, you know, just thinking out loud, like connecting them, but having something that they, when they leave,
build a distribution.
Follow us, like don't leave this booth until you have logged in and hit follow, so then we know they're in, you know.
I was just going to add a couple things relative to what you were saying with Dan. She hasn't found it yet, but my wife thinks there's a script from the early 1930s that some high school kids put together, students put together, of like a drama about Horace Mann. And then in addition, if you wanted to do some kind of a debate sort of thing, Horace Mann engaged in a debate in print, which is extremely long, about, you know, public versus secular education and various things like that. And the essences of that could probably be pulled out into short sound bites that could be done in some kind of short public presentation that would probably be meaningful to people and interesting. It's thought-provoking stuff, you know. He debated someone who was thoughtful, wasn't a screaming match. It was, you know, different ways of looking at the world. So.
Yeah. I like it all. Yeah. I mean, I get excited about it. It's a short runway, but there's a lot of people in this room, so we can pull it off. I think.
Is there a constraint on putting up a website? Would we want to put up a website attached to our our museum website, which is not technically a town website, so it's easy to do whatever we want. You know, we could have a subpage about Horace Mann until such time as something more elaborate comes along, because that would be useful.
Can I ask one more question about the account? Can we create a Venmo connected to that account? And then have the QR code at all our events and people can just donate?
My understanding, I remember back with Miriam, at our previous school business administrator, yeah, I don't think it can be, a Venmo is through Unipay, the same mechanism that we use to kind of pay our excise, all those other,
Okay.
I gotta pay my excise tax. But we can have on the website, we can have, like, within the website, and also a QR code that kind of brings you right to Unipay.
Perfect.
Absolutely right, yeah. I know there are other ones, like Give Daughter.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you want. You want them, right? Oh, I don't have any money. Oh, you don't need money.
Like a little QR code.
Yeah. Yeah, the barcode. Okay.
Well, I mean, we can go to Unipay and I can.
You can hold on, let me do a little research to save time. Sure. So what's feasible? Because there's a lot of ideas there. I would say
Right.
what's feasible for, we know there's a birthday celebration over 2 days. That's definitely happening in plan. Your idea was to kind of take a few of these things and possibly look to embed them, and then you reached out to Teddy Gallagher's, for example, or, because
Yeah.
that is off-site and that's not a town property.
Yeah, and I haven't done that yet, because I just wanted to make
Oh.
sure before I got, like, vendors
Yeah.
involved and,
Totally.
but I think having the students be jazzed about participating, I don't know if you guys want to add anything, I know you're just kind of here observing what we're all about, but, I think that's a big draw, so I think keeping the mock trial team and letting you guys develop something like that, and we can keep in touch, and then, I reached out to Diane Bluff to be like, hey, any of your, musicians, fiddlers, like, I know Zoe is a senior and she kind of, can do more than just classical, violin, so we had the MICA festival this weekend, for the musicians, so I got to see them and talk to them a little bit, so that.
You have a commissioner who's a fiddler, he could potentially do it.
Yeah,
If
so.
you don't mind gray hair.
And yes, I think that it's a matter of just kind of solidifying like a group of people that want to work on this, and then we can all kind of delegate different parts, and see, maybe it's just people come and they just purchase their own drinks and maybe Teddy like their own food, and so it's not really a cost thing as much as it's a entertainment thing.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could get Teddy Gallagher's to do one or two like dishes from back then. Like with
Right.
Like a special menu.
yeah, whether it's a soup or stew,
And
something that they could do easily.
If we did the Methodist church, we might be able to do like a potluck type thing, but then that's more work on us, and I don't know if we can pull it all together. Yeah. Thoughts? Anyone want to be on this? Any date did you want to?
You want to throw it also online, Reis or Karen? Okay, go back to the rest of the room.
I like all yes you're throwing out there. But I think, Ruthann, your thoughts of getting the students involved, having some sort of a mock trial or short play somewhere would be really nice over that weekend. It would also draw a lot of families, I think, in to see it, which we're trying to get people engaged and to know about this is something that's going to be happening over the next few years.
Yeah, I think I've noticed a similar like theme in that a lot of suggestions are along the lines of like something kind of theatrical, and I think that is a really good way of getting people engaged. And getting students to do it has the added benefit of people will show up to hang out with their friends. Like if the teen's got a friend doing it, then we're gonna go to this thing, this birthday party, and that is going to generate interest. So I really like those ideas, and I think Ruthann's push to really make it kind of like a big kickoff is certainly something that I support.
One thought, Steve, because we were just talking amongst ourselves that setting this up for community service hours would be useful to get more involved in and, get something out of it.
Yeah, I know that sophomores and freshmen, I'm sure you guys kind of know what other require. You do enough community service. I know, I see you guys everywhere, but yeah.
I'm on the leadership board for like a couple different national honor societies. So one of them is music. So we can, I don't know if Ms. Book got back to you, but we can facilitate like students meeting their performance requirements through this, if that's something you're interested in. And then I'm also part of the leadership team for the National Honor Society. So they have a community service requirement too, so I can post that. We just loop me in there.
Yeah, Lucas, does that sound like something good? Like, I don't want to take away from other
I think
service opportunities out there.
having music performers, students perform music, and even if it was a joint venture, if we had adult musicians who wanted to pair with students, if it was, I don't know, I'm not a director, but whatever the theme, I think the bigger ideas are, there seems to be interest in getting some students involved in a performance way to draw in as part of it, but I'm also, if I zoom out, what's the program and purpose? And it's to get people there to share information about what we're doing and then engage them a bit in, hey, this campus, it's all about, we're trying to move, so all of it has to be always with the thought in my mind of the plan to bring them in is to give them info and get their support as we build this kind of from the ground up, grassroots, to kind of get to a place where we've raised money, we have recommendations that lead to physical changes and days or whatever commemorations that exist. So I think yes, with the idea of how does it all tie together, meet our goal.
And maybe, I mean, in marketing, right, the ideal way to market something is to make them sick, make them well, right? So it's like, help Franklin hang on to Horace Mann's legacy, or something like, with the thought of like, we don't want to lose this legacy, like this is us like grasping, because that's ultimately how we came to be, was we changed the name of the school and the town went, we can't not have Horace Mann be the name of the school, and everybody got all stressed out and they petitioned the school committee, and on the policy committee we decided to have a subcommittee about this. So it really was formed from a demand from the community not to lose the legacy. So maybe it's
also part of what our goal is to be, is not just Horace Mann's legacy, but why it's pertinent to this day and time, and why going forward, this is important to you, this is why you need to be involved in it, this is why you need to know about it. This is what I think about. It's all got to be, why is it important now? Because people, it's more than, this day and age, it's more than 2 weeks old, it's old news, and forget about it. So forget about Horace Mann. But I think, why is Horace Mann important to us now in today's, the town, the school system, and our education? So that,
Please.
I'm not sure if it's the appropriate topic, but I'm interested in the students and connecting with our teachers. And if I have to have Lucas's input on what we could do if we're setting up some funding. I remember a number of years ago during ed reform, we did teacher externships, and we had them involved in writing projects and curriculum in exchange for professional development points. And I'm thinking that if music and theater are already at the top of that, if we added history, maybe got some teachers as a core, we would be able to develop a curriculum or something that could be embedded in as a regular thing at the time of his birthday or what have you. And for example, the music department and theater could partner on these, not just the debate, but maybe a little play and the music and so forth, and maybe do a concert of music of that period, not just, Horace Mann wasn't the composer, but there are events that would get a lot more parents, and I think we're missing a huge opportunity if we do not connect with teachers who might get the spirit and bring it down, even if it's elementary and middle, it sounds really fun to me. So that's my thought. We might need some money or credits for, I don't know. Do we still give PDPs out?
We give PDPs, we wouldn't pay teachers to do this, just to be honest with you guys.
But PDPs might be desirable.
Keep them employed right now. I appreciate it,
Right,
but I do
right.
think
Not
there's
money
ways to
then,
look
but
at this.
other
Yeah,
incentives.
I think your idea of kind of building out this programmatically so that it has teeth and it's
Right.
sustainable,
Yeah.
I get the.
So how does this all lead to us developing this campus, which is, I think, which is the overall goal where we're trying to get to, and our end goal of what that's going to be and how that drives what we're doing.
So,
No, go ahead.
yeah, I think a lot of it, kind of use this to really kind of like bolt off and, kind of gather people's attention, especially at the kickoff event, so that way folks kind of have an idea about who we are and the work that we're doing. But then I think at that event and all others, we kind of, come up with a little one-page flyer or small little note cards with QR codes that will kind of point back to both like the funding mechanism, and then we kind of continue just to, that work to say, all right, now we kind of have people's attention. What's that design going to look like, and how does that start to take place? And I want to circle back on that in just one moment, Bill, because just what I'm kind of hearing right now, just to make sure that I got in terms of some of my notes. So when it comes to like the birthday party weekend, a couple of items. One, just to kind of reach out to like Teddy Gallagher's or a local bar. I think Teddy's is easy right there, but just to kind of see what they might be willing to do. And then focus maybe on that Saturday, May 2nd, for a possible kind of mock trial debate. Is that something that might kind of work with both parties for you guys?
Yeah, we can make the hours available, sure.
And then figuring either, Alan, if you guys are able to kind of find, some of the Horace Mann debate.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys might be able to kind of parse out some of that information, but then also to kind of talk about, all right, we have this old one that we're kind of debating, this old style, Horace Mann versus, his opponents at the time, but maybe then also, it's kind of mentioned the so what. Like, what does that mean now in 2026? And I don't know if that might be something too to kind of toss on you guys to say, can you then kind of, come up with an argument for how does Horace Mann apply, 200 years later, in 2026? And to kind of maybe do that on that Saturday.
Yeah.
And what's the times again on Saturday?
We're normally 10 to 1, but we can vary the hours. 10 to 1 on Saturday, 1 to 4 on Sunday, but for something like this, we can stretch it either way. Somebody will volunteer. Probably Jan too. Jan's volunteers for everything. Yeah, so I'm sure we can make it work.
Okay.
Just, tell us what goes into the evening too. If you
And
want to
I
do like
had
an
the,
evening
I don't
performance.
want to interrupt, but I had sort of thought that because we have films picked out and kids' sketches about his lifetime, possibly a cake, that how to get them to Teddy's was going to be the mock trial thing, like that. That's kind of what I had thought was like.
Yeah, that's fine too.
The end of that. And but I'm also talking to Chris at the TV station who was developing a script, and then I went and I created like a Hamilton style script too that I was gonna share. So I think we could do both. There could also be some drama there, but I'm gonna have to have some sort of draw aside from just drinks and fiddles, I think. But that might be enough. That might be enough.
You'll be there, that's enough.
Yeah.
But to make that relevant to your point, like about like what is it? I think it is important that we have a why. Like we have a like what is our purpose, but we don't really have like the why nailed. And I think that when people go, what is this committee about? Why are you doing this? I think it's important to have a why, maybe that we can develop with this group.
That's a long answer.
Be consistent. Yeah.
I think we heard a little bit about it, but like a free and appropriate education for all kids, right? Of the birthplace of it, all honoring that he was born here and honoring that here. The other piece is, Dave, in your documents, the big picture highlights, like we have some subcommittee groups that were put out to us around the the storytelling, and this, what we're talking about now, that drawer is like the start of storytelling to me, like this idea of a mock trial or a future theatrical, whatever that is, that's almost one of the story. The other piece is campus design, like how are we going to, so that was separate, that's not gonna be tackled at Teddy Gallagher's, but it's one of the pieces, and I go back to what is our purpose? It was around what are the ways in which this will exist, and I wonder if it's also a chance to enlist, use it as like a feedback opportunity, like we're kicking this off, it's a party, we have some things to share, you know, that we've discussed, but we're also looking for you, hey, as members of this committee, you know, do you have anything on your mind that you'd like us to be thinking about as I go back to this big committee? Someone might pull, you know, Nancy aside and be like, Nancy, I really think this should be thought of. Or like, I don't know, I feel like we're all really representatives of this committee to the community in our different ways. Olivia at school, everyone kind of, so I think if we can make this like a push-pull, draw you in, tell you about what we are doing, and we really nail down why we're doing it, and then we're gonna embark on this plan for the year. We will have short-term and long-term goals. What do you hope to see? And I think if people typically respond better when they have something to react to versus a blank slate of tell us your ideas. If they see a direction of, we're trying to tackle a couple of major areas, storytelling, commemorations, design, right, of campus design, and what was the third one? Oh, finance. Yeah. And public outreach,
yes.
Right? Are there other ways in which you think we could engage? You might hear something that day, like, you know what you guys should do is, so anyway, just a thought, I think, trying to tie it all together.
So, sorry, Sherrod and I have to head out in a second.
Yeah,
but how long would you want, like, the segment to be?
So I was kind of thinking about that, like, do we think it would be possible, first of all, or worthy to have like 2 sessions? So people didn't feel like if they, you know, it's at like 10 and 11:30 or something like that. I mean, we don't want to keep you guys all night. At first my thought was, can we do one at the museum and one at Teddy Gallagher's?
Yeah.
So, you know.
We get to do twice, that way, you know.
And then maybe you guys switch sides. Do you do that in mock trial? So that it keep you on your toes?
And I think in terms of, concise too.
I would say just for the sheer sake of preparation, like to do 7 minutes, I'm just thinking of an audience's attention.
Yeah.
Less than 10.
Yeah.
But it's gotta be less than 10, and it's gotta be, and that's actually less to prepare too, but if you take out the salient points, because we really wanna capture like why he was such an advocate, so I think that's what I would say, no more than 7 minutes would be.
Yeah, I think one of the key pieces, you know, we're not necessarily gonna create, this is the entire answer. We want to create interest.
Yes.
So even the salient points, if it's this piece, then they're going to ask, well, what else? And that's when they can stay with us and follow the story, follow the development, right?
How does that take that long to like finals and things like that? How busy are students at that time? You know,
It's right before AP meetings.
It's like it's the day after the junior prom.
Yeah,
I did
and the
tell you guys the
SAT.
third. The third can work too, I think. It's gonna be easier to get a place like Teddy to close down kind of for us on a Sunday than a Saturday.
I mean, worst case scenario, we have members from freshman to senior, like we have members across all the grades, so we can gauge interest there. Worst case scenario, I'll show up with a senior friend. But I think we can make it work for participation wise. Yeah. And then kind of off topic again before we go, like just a thought that I had was I feel like we have successful events in Franklin, like the Harvest Festival and the Strawberry Stroll, and what makes those events so successful is one, there's like a bunch of people, different people involved in all those booths, but also I think that what inevitably gets people out there is the food, and I feel like we're missing a huge aspect of what our engagement could be if we're like restricted by like we can only give cake or like this food, and even it's like I understand like there's food concerns around being near the museum, but even if it's like on a side street somewhere else, like I think we'd be missing a huge audience if we didn't have food. I would go for the
Always. We can have Jenny make us cookies.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what we'll do, we'll kind of reach out to Teddy's, like local restaurants, and kind of see what their availability is, and then move you guys, like the team in, just ASAP, to kind of give some dates that might work, though. All right with you guys?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
A question, a comment, pursuant to what you raised, Lucas, could we create like a one paragraph, not quite, something a little more exciting than a mission statement, like kind of a PR statement, what this is hoping to be, acknowledging that it isn't absolutely cast in stone, but we want to do this to build some excitement. And I don't know if anybody's working on that. I'd be happy to work with someone on that.
Yep.
And then the other thing, just it's not entirely unrelated, but a little bit. Lowell Mason, if anybody knows his name, he's from 2 towns over, the father of music education, a near contemporary of Horace. So if we're going to have music, we could have some Lowell Mason music and kind of reinforce this notion of this region as being a place where people thought more about education of all kinds. Horace was the key, but there were other people too.
Lowell Mason Act is in the legislature right now.
Pardon me?
There's a Lowell Mason Act in the legislature right now.
Right, exactly.
It's in Mason Act.
I'm a Marine, so I'm always thinking of backup plans. If a full debate or a 7-minute thing isn't possible, I just want to be prepared too. Like that might be, I mean, I know AP exam, when are AP exams? They're coming up at like 8?
Yeah.
Wednesday's May 9th? Yeah. So I'm just thinking ahead, like we could also plan everything and have it, and then maybe it's a short video clip in lieu of, just in case, I just know they're on the spot, but I want to be realistic. Like, is this possible to do now? Is this more of a long-term plan? Is there another event where they're ready and that's ready? So just in case that 7-minute thing isn't really ready to go, you know what I mean?
Just
we can play video.
Also, like another student perspective too. We also have like courses in the high school. Like we have like video production and like a lot of kids who are like really passionate about that, interested for like maybe future careers in that area. That like I think maybe if they wanted to do a partnership with like the mock trial team and like maybe create a film that you could even like show at the museum or like something like that, that would be maybe more like reasonable, where like and kids would really like get really involved in that. So I think that could be another way to like resource the high school if that doesn't end up working.
It wouldn't be live, but it'd still be effective.
Right, we'd have it.
Yeah. And kids could like navigate and work with their like schedules, especially like the upperclassmen who would be really interested in it, and they could work around like their AP exams or what they're doing.
That's great.
What do you think that this mock trial would be? Maybe I get too in the weeds, but what would be the yin and yang, and what would they be pro, against?
They were saying
how would they approach it?
They had asked me like, what do you have for an idea? And I was like, because they were like, can we just take this and run with it based on like what we know about Horace Mann, and we can create it like based on like what you had mentioned, like secular education versus like what public education would be like. And then like, or we could do something modern like AI in schools, and what is that doing to us? And I was like, I think the historical part initially probably is better, but I also kind of was like, you guys could have creative control. And I was just like spitballing because I happened to be in school committee, and he just happened to be there next to me, and I was like, oh, we're doing this thing, and it'd be cool if we could have some sort of a dramatic, like a draw for people. But yeah, just, and everything doesn't have to happen this event like you had mentioned. So, but it's worth following up, because what I did was I reached out to them, gave him a little bit of time. He wrote back, he's interested, wanted to know more. I wrote back, and then I had seen Arsh and I looped him in, and then they got back to me like, we totally want to do this. It was like, I was very cautious, like not trying to tell your advisor what to do with the club right now. I'm not trying to impose on what you guys have going on, because this was before they even went to states. So I was really hesitant. So I hope they felt that like voluntary kind of miss of it. Yeah.
I think too, just hitting on those core pieces, like when he wanted education universal, and it would, before that, it was all like the town you were in and what they were able to strictly provide versus how we look at the state of Massachusetts is going to apply, like wherever you live, you're going to get, right? So I think that's on top of it, and then obviously the religious curriculum versus the kind of the universal, and then there was more reasons there. So I think we can come back to our why is around, it's so that every person who claims residency in really the country, but we're Massachusetts, right, gets the opportunities, and the kids today get the opportunity just like any kid when Horace Mann.
Because
advocate. So I just think like, that's probably, to answer your question, the debate.
Right.
Is probably someone pushing back on these ideas to say, hey, we don't need to change what we have, we're good, you know. And that's probably what the debate entailed, but.
So we got Kit, and we'll actually go online.
Just, I want to kind of throw out a cautionary tale about the restaurant piece, because as we know, there's a fairly robust complainer brigade in Franklin, who may say, well, why Teddy Gallagher's? Why not the row? Why not this? Why not that? So I think being transparent and opening the bidding to folks, I know we've identified Teddy Gallagher in the front end, but given Franklin's past, I can see that coming back. And we could stumble out of the blocks with negative pushback from the public. So I think just a way to, because there are a number of restaurants that are immediately adjoining the, right, there's the Santa Fe, there's the Rome, there's the Black Box, they have some kind of thing there. I'm not advocating against Teddy Gallagher. I'm just saying the history of this town, I think it makes sense for us to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to weigh in as to whether they want to participate or not.
No, that's fantastic. And I know that the town, I think, is working on like a restaurant week.
Okay.
So I think they might already kind of have like a listserv of like the restaurants that actually McCann is an individual from the town has been kind of reaching out to a bunch of different restaurants, which I know I'm super excited about, but we might be able to kind of just jump right on that and just kind of, here's a quick little blurb, just so that way, you're right, everybody has that full, you know, if they want to.
Opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's geography, walking distance to the museum.
Yeah.
That's how we
But at
kind of
least
start.
still-
And then anyone who, and maybe they all want to be a part of it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna set up we're gonna have a special drink that day.
Yeah, totally. Teddy can have their drink, the room has their drink, plus the
Usually try to
patronize the culinary.
And let's see, I think we got Reis.
Yeah, and I apologize if I'm repeating anything that's been said, because some people, I think, depending on where you're on the room, are harder to hear. But when Lucas was speaking about, you know, the education depending on where you live, and certainly to a certain degree that's still true today, but maybe there's an opportunity to educate people about what is done to make that less true. If it, like, presenting on things like Chapter 70 or the Student Opportunity Act and how those have impacted Franklin and, you know, Massachusetts as a whole, kind of bringing, you know, connecting the past to the present to make what Horace Mann started more of a living thing. Is that, like, here's what Massachusetts does to try to make it so the education you receive does not depend on the town you live in, and so forth.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you, Reis. And Jason? Yeah, okay.
Did you just call on me? Sorry. It's a little tricky here sometimes, and we're in the middle of bedtime. The thing I was going to say before has passed, but I would just add, sort of double click on what Reis said, and then from the sort of 30,000 foot view, I think a helpful framing piece could be civic access. That education as a end in itself, but also as a means to civic access, and I think that's neat because we can tell our own story as a town in that way. You know, the reason that we separated from Rentham was because we wanted to easier access to town meetings, you know, physically, and it was a matter of civic access, being able to participate. And I think you can tell that story about Horace Mann to universalized education so that, okay, there can be universal participation for rugrats like these in the body politic. I'm gonna go camera off now.
Appreciate it, Jason, thank you. All right, so we got a number of different things kind of going on for the kickoff birthday. Want to touch base on just a few other things, but first, any other kind of questions, thoughts?
Just storytelling. This committee, whoever is on storytelling, I think we have to own the narrative to start. I just don't want to have the students go off on it without, they don't have a lot of the context. They missed, like, even just this little part of the meeting. For the first thing, it's about going back to the why on the universal, because I think if we just have people work in isolation on a script, but then I'm always thinking about if it's not what we hoped, but we didn't actually set the set the parameters correctly. Now we've just disappointed a bunch of kids who work, like I don't know, you know how this goes.
Right.
So
It's an
like,
expectation.
yeah, we
Yeah.
need to have them work in isolation, deliver on something, they worked hard, and then we're like, we're not gonna do it, or it gets really, it can get funny down at the end, but.
Yeah, I think that's why the why is gonna be,
Yeah.
like maybe the why is the legacy. You know, like to preserve Horace Mann's legacy through education and engagement with the community. And ultimately branding our facilities. It could be that short. Because that sort of encompasses all the values.
Maybe you and Alan can connect on the little blurb on the, because he had
Sure.
offered earlier to kind of go
Yeah,
right.
yes, yeah, I'm happy to talk about
Okay.
that.
And then also, Lucas, kind of like talk, Erin, you had.
Yeah, so I'm, always thinking younger than what, the age groups that we've already talked about here. So I was thinking of chatting with Callie over at the library, complimentary activity for the kiddos that weekend over there. We're certainly planning to do something at my museum with Horse Monster and, the big man's birthday. So I already have like some base, simple, like early elementary type level reading paragraph for who is Horace Mann and why does he matter. I'm happy to put that onto, and this might tie into my conversation with Miss Callie, who I will never stop calling Miss Callie. But happy to put that content together on a sheet of a coloring page if that's something that would ever be given out in elementary schools. I don't want to impose on anybody's May 4th outside of Star Wars. But yes, happy to put that together and any of the other digital marketing stuff that Ruthann's already mentioned. So
Awesome. Thank you very much.
on there. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, that's fine. What's that?
It's a Horace Mann scavenger hunt. Kids love that at the library. Scavenger hunt.
Yeah, you're reading my mind.
Yeah.
Right. Miss Callie, she sees all the
She
stairs,
loves it, yeah.
up and down. Yeah.
So, what I think, so right now I know we got a couple of different action items for the party itself. Kind of reaching out to talk to the town for the restaurant week, just to kind of, so we can kind of see, if there are any kind of takers, especially knowing where the home base would be. Jason had texted me, we can also look into, and we talked about the Methodist church right next door. They have their new kitchens. We can kind of reach out to Jacob and see what that might kind of look like if they can kind of collaborate on there. Alan, will take a look at that debate to kind of reach out to.
Yeah, I'll find out more and share it with Ruthann.
Perfect.
Then you can talk to the students.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Lucas had kind of started talking about like the storytelling, the folks that were kind of interested in on that. So I know on the agenda we kind of talked about like it was like a bullet for like breakout session or then kind of report back. I think just given the nature of where we are right now, don't necessarily need to kind of do that. However, what my intent would be as we kind of start to move forward would be to have kind of more like agile groups when we're kind of like breaking up into those different buckets. So the campus design, the storytelling and educational piece, public outreach, and finance as well. And many of those can probably just be done via Zoom based on where everyone kind of completed that survey, and thank you all very much for that. I know there's a lot of availability, especially like in the middle of the day for some. I know not for all, but where I think we may be able to kind of find some times where each of those groups might be able to kind of meet. And then what we can do is events like this where we kind of have the full committee, that's when we're really kind of reporting back out. So would folks kind of be interested in a model like that? Where, so we would kind of have, and I think based on the survey interest, kind of about like, between like 6 to 8 folks on each of those different kind of groups. So we'll just kind of we can kind of create a Zoom link, meet up, talk about like certain issues. So for instance, like I know campus design. I think one of the first things that we've looked to do, and actually 2 items I'm seeing at the moment. One that was brought up from last meeting is to talk about some dates where we might be able just to kind of tour the campus itself, just to kind of walk the grounds. And so we can kind of talk about some dates that might work for the full committee. But the other one, just in terms of design, since a lot has already kind of been talked about what the website might be, if we're kind of passing out something, we might want to probably sooner rather than later come up with some kind of a logo that we can kind of use. It doesn't necessarily have to kind of be a perfect image that we're going to finalize everything with, but just something so that way when folks kind of go and we're handing out a flyer or one sheet, whatever it is with a QR code, they can kind of clearly see whatever the Horace Mann name is, this legacy. And where I think that might also be something where, again, we kind of go and just at some point hop on Zoom, 6 or 7 of us that are kind of there, start talking about that, and then at the next, probably sometime maybe like middle of April, we'll try to meet up again, I'm thinking, just so that way we can really kind of finalize things right before the kickoff. But the group can kind of go and say, hey, we've kind of talked about some initial designs, here's what we're thinking, and then we can all kind of go and dissect it, discuss it, and then start to kind of branch off from there. And kind of do that with each of those different pieces. Finance was a little thin. I think it was Tom and Alan, and thank you very much for being interested in that. But we can certainly, anybody will be able to kind of go and drop in on these, but I think it'll help us as we kind of start to kind of move forward, just make sure that we're always kind of going in that right direction, and then kind of come back to these ones, report back out, and then have some open floor discussions.
Okay. Just a quick question regarding finance. Are we able to do corporate or level sponsorships like other events do, like platinum, silver, gold for different things? Sponsors of the. Another way to think. I was just thinking about money. Other way, for example, I think Downtown Partnership has different levels of sponsors for their events or things like that. So I didn't know if that was because we're kind of tied to the school committee. I didn't know if the rules relate to the schools also relate on us.
That's a good question.
I know that I'm seeing the Franklin High School sign on the way from the police station down Panther Way on in. At the very bottom, it's like it mentions the Rotary Club. And so so that could be a possibility but I know we talk about more.
I was thinking down the line, when we have a big event in 27, right? Isn't there something, do we want to do that? And how do we tie into, I
think we just have to look at the rules.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I think
but it's a long
if the
road to get there, to get
partnership,
people to do that.
Right.
So anyways.
I think it's worth exploring on how I know to model it after what the Downtown Partnership has. Yeah. And if technically they're a town entity, right?
Yeah. Separate, 501c3.
Okay.
They're separate.
Why did I think they were recommended to serve on it? All right. Okay. We can look at it and see. And then the other thing is just thinking of the non-profit thing. You've been down that road, Kit, but I'm just thinking, like, is there a way I'll get back to this group. I want to just check the regs for school finance.
Yeah, like whenever we did shirts, people paid to have their logos at a certain level of the shirt.
Right.
If we're going to do attire, just thinking of that. It's kind of a general kind of thought process, not anything
I
specific.
think it's a great idea too, because like what the museum did when you were getting your founders ready, like if it's a legacy we're creating, if we're doing it visually around the campus, maybe there is a campus wall where you get your name on a brick as part of like the founding legacy of our families.
They did that for the snack shack, didn't they? Yeah, there's a plaque on the snack shack of those who donated. So I know on the Franklin. So I think there's a mechanism here. I think we explore it, find out the rules of the road, and then come back to the group and let you know what the facts are. Backwards planning. We're really going back to the deliverable on May 3rd, 2nd and 3rd, right? And the deliverable there is really to have somewhere we can point people to that's kind of clear, articulate. I'm assuming we have a brand for Horace Mann for this subcommittee or the legacy committee. That's done. We have these answers around the financial aspects, but ultimately we do have a way to collect money. And then as far as the storytelling aspect, there's irons in the fire right now on what that will look like. So I'm just trying to make sure where the subcommittees know. And then campus design, sounds like they might tackle the logo first. but then we want to get tours to kind of look at space, but it's all going to get kicked off on the 2nd and 3rd.
And the website, because if we want to
And you need
fundraise
that
on the
open.
day of the
Yeah.
birthday, then we need that ready.
You probably need a handle, because you want to take photos of that event to start populating
Yeah.
some sort of social media. So, okay, I'm just thinking backwards, and then we can figure out the debate, and then any other, if there's music, who's coordinating,
Yeah.
period, correct, and then restaurants, who's checking to see who wants to be involved with this, and then,
I can commit to like solidifying with Alan the hours and locations. And then from there, it'll be a lot easier to work within the committees and delegate and things. So once we know the hours and the
Yep.
locations, those are key.
yep, but in the meantime, we're still working on a website no matter what, we're still
Yeah.
working on a brand no matter what, and our message and our why, to get that really articulate.
Can we work on a draft message kind of document that,
Yeah.
you know, the committee can
Yeah.
finalize it, but it would be a start.
Yeah, and I think it almost has to be community facing, ready to
Right.
get people jazzed about this event. And I know you reached out to the paper too, right? And she was gonna try to put something in there.
Correct, yeah, so what, Kit and I were chatting before, he kind of recommended reaching out to the Franklin Town News. So I got a call tomorrow with Judy, one of the reporters over there. She said that April 1 had just gone to print as I texted her that morning. But at least to kind of go and to have that discussion, to be able to have that change, so that way at any point down the road, we'll be able to kind of chat with her and chat with a whole bunch of others, because
You could still do something for the 1st of May, for May. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't want to advertise for the event because it would be too late. It would come out while you're having the event, but it could be part of a larger media campaign.
Absolutely.
Part of a larger blitz. Even folks who may not see it online would get their paper and say, oh, there's a big thing, and you get repeated hits. Right?
I would say don't finalize any content with Judy until we have a website link to give her,
yes.
so.
Yeah, tomorrow is just exploratory and just to
Yep.
kind of chat and see what options might be available. 100%.
Yeah.
And so with,
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna add something like as a student perspective at the high school, like just throwing myself out there as a way to like connect with anyone at the high school, whether that's like a club or like the teachers or even like the kids for like attendance and publicity at these events. Like I'm just even thinking of like involving the littles with the library. Like I know we have clubs like Peer Leaders of World of Difference who would like love to volunteer their time, like connecting with those people. I just wanted to like present myself as an asset through the high school in any way that any of like the like smaller committees would like need. But even like social media or design, like I know there's a lot of high schoolers that are very maybe too familiar with social media, but like that could really touch on or like just work together to like hit on like different audiences within the town, whether that be like families or teens or parents or like the littles or whoever it may be, just for like attendance and publicity of the events, whether that's like in a media way or through like our sports teams or like just like I think Franklin High School could be a real asset here, just like from knowing it as a student there. So in any way that I can help in that way, even beyond just like theater, we can incorporate, not to like throw too many ideas out there, but like we could get the clubs involved for if we need volunteers or attendance for any of the events, just to like kind of start off with a thing.
Do you know the Panther app?
Yes.
Now we have the Panther app. Kids who go to sporting events get points. If they go to a theater event, they get a point. If they go to any type of Franklin High School event and they log in and they show up, they get, it knows they're there because of the app. That's where you can buy tickets. Actually, it's a free app on your phones if you want to download it. And you can see anything going. Steve has it open right now. And that's the Franklin High Panther app. That's our app.
That's awesome.
But anyway, I was thinking if kids got credit, because ultimately what it means is you accrue points and then you get like a free shirt. If you go to enough things throughout the year, you earn enough points to go to the gift shop and trade it in for just going and attending student, because we're trying to build spirit. I think, Olivia, you're hitting on that.
Yeah,
so.
and I think another thing, I know we had like,
We can put this on.
yeah, we kind of hit on it, I think, in like in a previous meeting, but like talking about how kids, at least I know, because like having gone through the Franklin public school system since elementary school, like I attended Horace Mann Middle School, but we get to middle school and then we get to 8th grade and like it's like an energy where kids get so pumped to be like, oh, I'm starting to hit a point where the students are feeling it in clubs like mock trial and peer leaders. I think it's growing beyond just like our sports teams that are really prominent at the high school. So I think like if even expanding that to like kids through that app, like there's like the logo of the app is like the Franklin Panther. So I think expanding like this Panther pride that's really present in our teen audience with like Horace Mann and like kind of having like kind of just running with it in parallel to like we have our Panther, but like including Horace Mann and like this like foundation of education that's in the school systems, but like kids only know like our Panther. So
well, that's fantastic. And especially, was out of this Franklin Fathers event just like last week, and I happened to be chatting with this other dad that was there, and I mentioned the Horace Mann committee. He's like, I've heard about that. He was kind of new to town, and he's like, somebody mentioned it, so I went on Wikipedia, I started learning about him, and he's like, he really did a lot for education. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. And it was only then I was like, that's why we're doing this, because we want to celebrate him for being, this is his birthplace. And despite him really having, he went on Wikipedia, he did his deep dive, he felt, he was in on it. He was like, wait, he was born in Franklin? He's like, why don't more people know about that? Yeah. And so I think, to your point, that's exactly, the more that we can kind of go to do that, and we get everybody, the kiddos and the adults. Al, you mentioned that last meeting, that marketing, that branding thing. I think that's another of the whys. Why are we doing that? It is to, to really try to do what we can to continue on and make sure that the next time that I have that conversation, the guy's like, oh yeah, you mean the guy, I know right where he is. I go to a liquor store by his old house.
Yeah, right.
So I think a lot of that is answers some of those questions about the why. This is all fantastic. So I think right now, what we'll do is we'll figure out some dates and times that might work both for those smaller individual meetings, and again, really just kind of do them over Zoom. For folks who aren't interested in, say, like the financial aspect, no obligation to jump into this one or to the campus design. I have the folks that are interested. I'll kind of throw that out there first, and we'll try to organize the times. If you want to join in, more than welcome to every single one. And if you just say, no, I'm just going to stick with campus design, it's going to be my shtick, that's perfect. But then what we'll do, probably maybe right after April vacation, we'll try to meet again just to kind of pull it all back together, and then it gives us that week lead up time just to kind of solidify everything as we kind of go into to the birthday, and then start talking about what are we doing in the Strawberry Stroll, what are we doing at the community booths at the farmers markets operate and offer, and then into everything else just to kind of do that drip campaign, all the while circling back to, all right, this is all about elevating his legacy, trying to get some money, and then to go towards a design that we can kind of use for the campus itself.
Maybe I'm being too crass, but shouldn't be the driver, and it might be in the background. I agree with everything we've been doing, the educational piece and why it's important. But at the end, when we're doing all these things, it'd be, we want money. Mm-hmm. We want money. Donate. Should always be everything we're doing. Because that's going to drive, 3 flags in front of the high school, or something that's going to be, you're going to be really proud of.
Absolutely. Yeah, because ultimately we have, without that, where it's not happening. We can have all the grand ideas, we can do as much as we want. There's definitely some things that we will be able to do kind of year over year in terms of, elevating the birthday party or civics day within schools, but to actually do a design, without any kind of financial backing, it's not there. So that's why hopefully on the 14th, it'll kind of go before the school committee to open up that revolving account. That's the first piece. So then we can kind of start having that cascade effect, so that when we do kind of come on back at the end of April, hopefully we'll have that there. We'll have the website up and running, and so folks can start to make those direct donations, and then just talk about that ad nauseam.
Do we want to think about ideas that have I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but we're going to talk about it, and people are going to say, well, what is the money? What are we thinking? Like, where are we going? So I don't want to just make decisions and then make people feel like they're coming along for the ride, but I'm just thinking, we've talked about some, branding on the campus. We've talked about the museum, we talked about having Horace Mann specific, like beef ups a certain that part of the historical part, right? The Horace Mann piece. I'm just thinking out loud. We talked about a statue. We've talked about commemorative day or a curriculum. So I just think like all these things are on the table, and that's why we're getting this out. This is our why, to preserve his legacy, and we want to do it in multiple ways. So without over committing to what the final thing may be, but these are the bigger, like if we zoom out just a bit from like a boulevard banner, it's the idea of having iconography or having some representation. It's this, there's just a bunch of different legs to it. So I don't know, just thinking out loud for the day of the Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the future at the Strawberry Stroll and Farmers Market is like, we're doing all this, and it's to raise money for all these projects.
I think the sooner we can dangle something, even if we don't have something tangible to tell people they will be, but if you are a ex-donor, you will be commemorated in some form aesthetically in our design, whether it's a name on a brick or a name on a plaque, or the sooner we can put something even just figuratively
I think without having a design in mind at all, that's hard to do though. Like,
right.
Hard to tell them where they're being represented. I think that you're telling people that they are helping to support community educational events of a variety of types, and that's separate but related. This committee is also fueling the project at the Horace Mann campus for branding and visibility, and that funding will also help support that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Zoom out
yes.
to that level.
Yeah.
Branding, education, engagement,
yes,
storytelling.
Yeah.
While I agree with kind of the tiered concept of sponsorship, that should work, it's too early. We don't know the event yet, and we can't promise or overpromise.
Yeah.
But the key piece is simply awareness, for one. Engagement, give us your email, join the list.
Yep.
And if you want to contribute to what we're going to do, please do so. And then the rest of the conversation happens.
And that's what the website should be. Basically, what you both just summarized is that's as much as we probably want to commit to. The why, how to stay engaged, and what the plan.
And even where.
Those first couple, like the birthday celebration, the bigger push might just be to get them to give their email on the website, not to talk about donating or anything else right now. You want them to become a part of the story and to want to follow along with it and to join you on the ride, and then you get there. But we don't have enough information to ask them for their money before.
The hook for the email, I would suggest, is if you've got an idea, give us the email and the idea. That way it's not just an email to stay informed. Oh yeah, I want you to consider this. Oh yeah, I want you to consider this. Now, boom, you're in there.
Yeah, or they might not want to give you the email, so the social media following might be better.
Right.
And pointing to the next time we're going to be publicly available. So that day is like, we're here. The next time is Strawberry Stroll or something. Come see us at our tent, and then we keep building up the materials and keep moving it.
So it's 20 after 8, and I'm feeling compelled to herd these cats. So are you going to, the folks who identified what they wanted to do on the form, will there be a group email that goes out to those folks, and then will there be kind of a summary of our time marks here, what we're looking at, which committee is focusing on what, or, and who is on that committee, and, in other words, will there be something going out, or will we be figuring that out?
No, what I'll do is just like at the last meeting, I'll kind of do like that big picture kind of meeting recap that I'll blast out to everybody. And then if there's anything that needs to get added, we add it on in. Then I'll also send out individual emails to those to campus design, finance, storytelling, education, and public outreach to kind of say, all right, here's those next kind of targets that we're looking to do, along with like a Zoom link where we'll be able to kind of go and jump into.
And we'll all have access to that.
Correct.
To your point.
Yes. Absolutely. And what I'll do is I'll kind of just identify the folks that said they were interested in each of those kind of 4 groups, but everybody's more than welcome to jump into it. But yeah, so then what we'll do is then everybody will then kind of go meet do that, and then we'll kind of come on back after the school's April vacation, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, I think that's
So that you'll email out, and then the tasks will be clear, like the charge of this group between now and Sunday, keep saying it right, is this, who's on it, what's expected, and then my thought is have a document, Google Doc, and then anything you do just always is in the same document, so we're not chasing a bunch of different things, it's just there, and then if we had access to everyone's email on the thing, you could reply all and say, Alan might say, hey, real quick thing, we figured out these 3 places are gonna, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud.
No, so that, Colin, would you mind?
Like a running document
tab,
for
HML action item.
I know you did, by the way, you did this isn't my idea, I'm just saying it for the betterment of the group.
So, we already kind of started to kind of build out was that just in a Google spreadsheet, and I will kind of share that out with everybody. Okay. This was just actions from that first kind of like meeting recap. We'll kind of fine tune it, but ultimately kind of have what the idea would be is that we kind of have all of our action items, all the big picture stuff, but then you mind clicking into the tab, Campus Store. Then with each kind of action itself, what are some of the drilling down kind of tasks that we'll have? And this is a way that I'm hoping to kind of be able to kind of keep us all organized and to kind of keep us going, is to say, all right, here's some of those big level ones. Now during some of those smaller agile Zoom ones, let's really start to kind of narrow down what are the specific details, and then we can start kind of following that along as we're moving forward. And this, everyone's going to have access to this as well.
That's great.
I don't know if the old school start time structure transferred from the old website. I don't know if it came over to the news website, but the way that was laid out, I know we talked about kind of being an analog. That might have some ideas about how things were set up and things. I mean, we kind of worked. Each group had their section of the website or whatever the Google Doc. But I don't know if that transferred over. When I know it's on the website, but I've never looked at it.
It might be archived.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That had the kind of structure that we were talking about.
That was back in time. So probably
It was on the old one, because I remember sharing it with people after the fact for historical. Okay. Sounds like a good plan.
So I'll get all this out to everybody, and then we'll start kind of going on with those smaller groups. Any kind of questions, comments?
Who does the Zoom for each separate group?
We kind of
figure that out.
Okay.
We could either set up a Zoom or we could set up a
Google
It'll be
Meet.
smaller. We could probably do Google Meets and just be easier.
And then I'll just kind of we'll throw that out to everybody.
And then they have to log in.
Yeah, what we'll do, I'll also kind of reach out to folks, and we'll make sure we'll just have kind of one person, running that ship, taking notes, and then kind of reporting back out to everybody. Yes. Anybody online? All right. Thank you all so much for your time. Really appreciate it. If you want, we got a couple of extra cookies on your way out. Thank you guys very much.
We are now producing this in collaboration with Franklin TV and Franklin Public Radio. This podcast is my public service effort for Franklin, but we can't do it alone. We can always use your help. How can you help? If you can use the information that you find here, please tell your friends and neighbors. If you don't like something here, please let me know. Through this feedback loop, we can continue to make improvements. And I thank you for listening. For additional information, please visit franklinmatters.org. If you have questions or comments, you can reach me directly at suresteve@gmail.com. The music for the intro and exit was provided by Michael Clark and the group East of Shirley. The piece is titled Ernesto Mañana, copyright Michael Clark and Tin Type Tunes in 2008, and used with their permission. I hope you enjoy. By the way, you can also subscribe and listen to Franklin Matters Radio on your favorite podcast app. Search in podcasts for Franklin Matters.